Hey, Cassandra Clay here. I'm going to start doing, some education around some of the chakra systems. But one thing that I find that most people don't talk about, they'll talk about all the major chakras, but they will not talk about the minor. So I'm not saying the information isn't out there because there is, but a lot of people that I've talked to have no idea that other than the seven main chakra systems, I mean, yes, there's an eighth, but then there's also 21 minor as well. So, with the minor chakra systems today, I'm just going to focus on the shoulders because what I have noticed with many of my clients, as well as myself, especially in the beginning, where a lot of people tend to hold a lot of tension, is actually in the shoulders. So, yes, it can be definite physical issues. But then again, when you start having, a physical symptom, usually it's because of something emotional, mental, even spiritual that's happening that's creating a physical imbalance. So, usually, when you get to the root cause of what's going on, it can start releasing that tension and allow your body better resiliency as well. So, I find it really interesting because when you start looking at the shoulders and what they actually represent here, it's around responsibility. It's around taking practical steps in our life. It's around feeling empowered by the interactions of life and flexibility around responsibilities that we have. Now, in a perfect world, this is how we would be. It would be easy to take responsibility, it'd be easy to take steps. We would easily feel empowered in our life and our interactions. But of course, with the way things are, there's a lot of experiences that we have where we begin to feel disempowered by the interactions that we do have. This could be, say, a lack of boundaries. It could also be traumatic events that we've experienced that have seemingly taken our power from us. Or we might be in a position where, for our age or for our dynamic, the amount of responsibility that we have might be inappropriate but necessary at the time as well. And then we may not have that flexibility around our responsibilities. So we might feel like this is all we have and we have no other choice or no other way. So when things go into a pathological state, so the shoulder chakras, right around the whole shoulders there can affect all of the different muscles in the back as well when out of balance. But when this goes into a pathological state, that's when it becomes expressed in an unhealthy way, the chakra system. So, responsibility can be then perceived as a burden of life and a major creator of our stress as well as our complications. And it's something that it's hard to actually get through. So, our day to day stuff, other than regular stress, this might be adding to our stress mechanism. So, feeling switched a lot more of the time, which I find interesting. And then a lot of times we will want to escape these burdens, and you may also feel like you've lost your freedom. So, in a lot of ways, if we have a lot on our plate, say being a single parent, being the sole provider, having to work multiple jobs, you know, just as a quick example, I mean, you have all these responsibilities to provide and to care, and you may not have much time for yourself or much ability to do anything outside of that realm of providing. So it's interesting because when you start to feel like you lose your freedom, that's when you start to feel trapped. And in a lot of these pathological states, that's where we start holding all of the weight of the people we care about, weight of ourselves, weight of our friends and family, even maybe work stuff we might tend to hold on into here as well. So anything that we may perceive to be a burden, whether it's a faulty belief, which it usually is actually. So, whatever that faulty belief is, whatever that perception is around that burden, typically where we hold it is in the shoulders. But then the other aspect of the shoulders as well is where we become, pretty defensive, where we start, armoring ourselves in some way, trying to protect our heart, trying to keep ourselves distant and a little bit disconnected in order to stay safe. So it's interesting because there's a few meridians that actually move through the shoulders as well. So even though it's a minor chakra, it also connects to a major. It also has meridian systems that run through there as well. You can also experience depression and grief or anger or any emotion really associated with those perceived burdens. But those are the more typical ones that you will store in those areas in regards to your burdens. So, what will happen is that we'll be experiencing the burdens of life and duty, We will feel restricted. We'll want to feel free in some way, but we can't. And we'll actually start resenting our life situation. So, one thing that I found that's really helpful with working with any chakra system, not just this one, but once you know what did this area represents, you can start to ask yourself, okay, so what are my belief systems? What is it that I believe to be true that's faulty? What am I holding on to? And once you find those belief systems, the faulty ones, you can start bringing in positive belief systems and actively choose to no longer believe that faulty belief. There's a whole, program around how to disassociate those belief systems. Or you can get, a session with me. You can find another practitioner if you like, talk Reiki. I mean, there's tons of modalities that can help with these types of things. And it's one of the things that I love to do the most. But regardless, there's ways for you to find out those belief systems. But you can also start actively looking at, okay, this is what I perceive to be my burden. Write what you perceive to be your burdens. Okay. And don't even think about it. Just write whatever comes to mind, because things that may not be burdens, from a logical standpoint, we might feel as if they are. So, for example, one of the basic responsibilities that we have might be cleaning the house, right? But if you're dealing with other health issues, or if you're dealing with, you know, other responsibilities that just seem to take up space, and it just seems like the mess in the house keeps piling up and piling up and piling up, then it becomes one of those, responsibilities that we feel like we cannot take care of, and it adds to our stress and we see it as a burden. So you can start looking at it from those perspectives and see what it is that's causing you that stress, and start to think of it, how can I perceive this differently? And one thing I find really helpful, especially with the minor chakra systems, if you have knowledge of the seven main, then it's great to bring that into, say, the heart, for example. So when you start, looking at these areas and then you start connecting it in with the heart, what that means is that you're releasing belief systems and emotions that are associated with that as well. So one thing that I like to do when I'm reworking my belief systems or my burdens or whatever it is that I'm doing, I like to hold my hand over my heart or my solar plexus, depending on what's going on. The heart also allows, just that sense of respect, trust, boundaries. So, I mean, holding the heart area while you're reworking your belief systems can be very impactful. And as well as bring in as many positive experiences as possible as to why this burden isn't actually a burden. So it's kind of a way to disassociate the faulty belief of a burden or responsibility and take in all the positive aspects that will help your perception shift. So another thing you can do is listen to these solfeggio frequencies. 528 is also a very good generalized solfeggio frequency that can help with rebalancing the chakra systems, whether they be major or minor. But anytime you do meditations or anything like that, set your intention. So if your intention is to work on rebalancing the shoulder minor chakra, set that in before you do your meditation. And if you like to visualize things, you can actually just, take some deep breaths and then just try to visualize what the energy center of your shoulders actually look like. Does it look like they're open and expansive, healthy, flowing, moving properly, or is it stagnant? Is it kind of broken? Is it not functioning the way that it seems like it should be? You don't need to have an in depth knowledge to visualize these things and see that something doesn't seem to be quite right there. If something looks stagnant, typically that's not a healthy thing. So, I mean, you can just visualize it, moving in a healthy way, connecting to other parts of the body that may be needed, you know. I mean, really, it's open to your intuition on how to balance that. So there's lots of ways that you can do on your own. But a lot of people don't realize that this is what can add to so much tension and can create a physical imbalance as well. So the muscles in those regions may be more susceptible to injury, strains, pulls because of those emotions and because of those experiences and because of that perception around our burdens and responsibilities. So if you're having a lot of shoulder tension and a lot of shoulder pain, really start to look into it. really start to think about what you've experienced, not just in the last year, but say when you were 5 years old, 10 years old, 15, 20. Go back into childhood, teen years, young adult years, whatever you need to find where some of those beliefs might have started. And once you start going into it, when you start to work with those areas, you might find other ages and other experiences come up because you're starting to disassociate that emotional charge and start to shift your perception. So it can take quite a bit of work and practice doing this in order to figure out like how this works for you, but it's just something to be aware of as well. This is just information for you to really start looking inward and saying, okay, what tension am I holding on to? What is going on for me? What emotions haven't I released? What am I perceiving to be a burden or restriction? Where do I not feel free? And then start to work with those perceptions, because a lot of these experiences or beliefs may ring true for the fact that we've gone through certain things, but that doesn't mean that's what the rest of your life is going to be like. And you can also work with that perception so that you're not stuck in that one narrow mindset. So, with any of the chakras or minor chakras, I mean, this will ring true for all of them. So, you can use these types of resources for balancing all of them. But I mean, each one represents something different. So then you're going to have to do some little detective work on your own or find a practitioner as well, like me, if you want, to help you through that. But just some information and just something to keep an eye on, because I find this is really important because often we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We carry the weight of our loved ones, our experiences, especially if we're not as vocal about them, we tend to store them. So, just some food for thought and some information and education for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can send me a message here. You can send a comment in here as well. You can also email me, which you can find on my website, CassandraClegg.com. Alrighty, guys, have a good night. And I will be doing another video shortly talking about the elbow minor chakra. And I'm just going to go through all 21. So stay tuned.